three-legged stool. When we're born, we're like the base of a stool. You say, what, doesn't look like a stool, doesn't even have any legs on it. No, it doesn't. But as this child is born and starts to grow, the mother starts to care for it. It does start to grow. The mother nourishes the baby, looks after the baby as mothers do, and the baby starts to grow. The physical leg of this stool, figuratively speaking, of course, starts to grow. Now, it's often got, well, how much did the baby weigh, or how tall was it, or how long was it, and so forth. So everybody is aware that the baby is growing. Somebody comes to see it a week or two after it's born, oh, it's growing. I can see it sure has grown since I saw it last. So we're well aware of the growth of this physical leg of our stool. So time passes, the mother continues to care for this child, and then the mental side of the child, the mental leg, starts to grow. And before long, the child, you walk into the room, make a noise, and the child will look, or the mother comes in and smiles at the mother, and before long, time passes pretty fast, they're beginning to speak, and they can see this mental side of this child. And often somebody will say, you know, that child sure is smart. Just look at him, just the least little thing, he's so alert, and I know he's going to be just like his daddy, or just like his mother, or he had an uncle that sure was a smart uncle, and you know, his aunt, and on and on and on it goes. So they are recognizing the growth of this child's mental state. Body, mind, and then there's the spiritual side. Now, if we start talking about spiritual growth in a young child, I don't know that I'm qualified. In fact, I know I'm not qualified to talk about this spiritual growth in a young child. You might need a theologian for that, but you'll get the point. There is, in my opinion, some seeds, some potential for spiritual growth even in a young child. So we have been feeding this child's body, mind, and the spirit. And so we look at ourselves and we look at the child and we see how we're coming along. Well, it's pretty obvious that there's no balance here. It's pretty obvious that this is not a functional stool. And so in reality, this child that we're talking about, the body grows quite a bit, the mind grows somewhat, and then the spirit grows somewhat. And I have said that this is the way this child looks as a teenager. Strong in their bodies, has a mind that's a good mind, but they don't always use it like they should. They don't always concentrate like they should. They don't always apply themselves like they should. But nevertheless, the mind is there and it's growing. And then spiritually, the child does grow spiritually, in my opinion, as it moves along in this growth process. So as teenagers, this is the way we look. And again, there's not much balance, but that's the way it is. So now we continue growing. This teenager that's 16 years old continues to grow, and they're 20, and they're 25, and they're 30. And just in the normal process of living, growth occurs. Not a lot of effort is put into this. Not too many, say 25-year-olds, pay much attention to what they're eating. They don't pay much attention to maybe go to school. You know, we're told we need to go to school and maybe need to get a master's degree and whatever and continue our education. And then it's probably a pretty good idea for this child or this young person to go to church. Now, by the way, everything that I say is average. It's for the average person. There are exceptions to the rules either way, but this is for average. And this is for you to just ponder as we talk about it. So, this child comes along now, they're growing, they're doing okay. They are just processing what I'll call normally as they move along in their life. And they continue to grow physically, continue to mature. They're not mature at 16. I'm not sure when maturity really occurs, frankly. I think it's much older than most of us realize. But 25 or 30, this person is continuing to mature. They are continuing to grow. They probably read a few books and start paying attention to some of the things that they need to do. They maybe need to take some courses to further their education, to further their growth of their mind. So our bodies are growing, our minds are growing, and our spirits are growing. So these parents now, these adults, these children have turned into adults now. They are responsible adults. They realize that their children are 8 or 10 years old, 12 years old, and they need to set a good example for this child. So they start to go to church, have the child go to Sunday school, and this is just something that you're supposed to do as a 35-year-old or so. So they have a nice house. Remember, they're 35, 40 years old, they have a nice house. They have 2 cars. The husband's got a good job. The wife is working to do her part. And things have really become rather hectic. We must confess this. Remember, this is an average example. So the person, now let's see how our person is doing. Looks like a stool. You could sit on this stool, not very comfortable, and it's not really, well, it's got a lot of room for improvement. Now, here's this person now. They reach this status. They're doing pretty good, look pretty good. Society looks at them and say, oh, aren't they a nice family? But really, the least little thing can come along, finances or other crises can happen, and this stool can topple over. Usually this is a big surprise to people. They say, well, I thought they were getting along just fine. I mean, they had a nice house, and they just bought them a new car, and the children, but things are still not balanced, and they are subject to topple over with a crisis, and we all have to deal with crises along the way. So at some point, as our person continues to grow, and I have thought that this might happen at 40 years of age. We've all heard the expression, life begins at 40. Maybe it does. Maybe there's something to that. Maybe somewhere along the line, years ago, somebody realized that it takes a while for us people to grow up. So this person has reached 40, this special age, and they start to assess themselves and say, well, there's a lot of room for improvement. I'm doing okay, and everybody thinks that we're just the ideal family, but there's some weaknesses here. I have this kind of empty feeling inside. Something's not quite right. Don't know what it is. Need to make a change of some kind, and I don't know what change to make. And then one day they read a book, they see a movie, they hear a message somewhere, some friends stop by and talk to them, they see a demonstration of a stool, a parable of a stool, and they say, well, I need to take this serious. I need to get serious about my life. And I'm not going to play any more games. I realize that without really knowing it, intending to, I've been playing games. I don't want to play games. I want to get serious. I'm going to really be careful and watch carefully as I know how the feeding, the nourishing of my body and my mind and my spirit. Now let me say one more time. The nourishment, nutrition is the foundation of health. Hippocrates told us that 2,500 years ago. So if you're sitting here thinking, well, that's so basic. Yes, it is. But somehow or other, we've all gotten busy and we've neglected the things that really matter. So that's the purpose of this, is to bring us all back to a point that really matters. So the person says, look, no more games. I'm tired of playing games. I'm going to get serious. Tells the wife, or the wife tells the husband, and they say, well, people are going to think you're a fanatic if you really start being a little more careful in these areas. I mean, we're getting along pretty good. We've got a nice reputation in the community, and if we're not careful, we're going to lose that. They're going to look at us as fanatics. And so the answer to that question is, do you want to be healthy, or do you want to be a fanatic, or do you want to be like everybody else? So, of course, the decision is in our symbolic person here. They said, look, we want to be healthy. We're going to do whatever it takes to become healthy. So they begin to work. They begin to think. They begin to read. They begin to talk to people. And they begin to properly nourish themselves as best they can. So if we're serious about feeding our body, what are we going to feed our bodies? What is the proper best food for our bodies? Fresh fruits, vegetables, nuts. I told you this was simple. This is what people have been eating since the beginning of time. If people were out in the woods wandering around in nature, they wouldn't eat what most civilized people eat. They would eat fresh fruits, vegetables, and nuts, what people were intended to eat. What about water? Our bodies are 2/3 water. It stands to reason that we should be using and drinking pure water. If there's any question about water, you might want to consider distilled water. Nevertheless, pure water, because our bodies are 2/3 water. Do I become a vegetarian? Now remember, we're searching for answers. And as individuals, we're the ones that make these decisions. We have a choice. We can choose this, we can choose that. The choices are ours. Do I become a vegetarian? Our choice. Might want to get a book about vegetarianism. What do vegetarians eat? How do they eat? How do they live? What about harmful additives in our foods? Many of our foods today have harmful additives. I'm an example of somebody who got a hold of MSG, monosodium glutamate, and it has affected me. I have headaches, I stagger around, and I'm supposed to know these things. This is my field, and I still got caught in that trap. So if I got caught, chances are other people may also be getting caught. Sodium nitrite, aspartame. I'm not sure how long this list is. I suspect, unfortunately, it's a long list of harmful chemicals in our food that we don't really realize. So the point here is beware of what you're eating. Maybe read some labels. Start to investigate. Start to search for total health. Juice. Do I buy a juicer and make my own fruit juice? Make my own orange juice? You say, well, I can get it in the grocery store, for half a gallon for whatever. Well, is that the same? Is that natural food? Should I fast? These are things for us to consider as individuals. Microwave ovens, are they safe? There's a large segment of people, even some countries, who say microwave ovens are not safe. Now, all these are things for us to be thinking about as we hear them. Are organic foods really worth the price? Most organic foods in the grocery store cost more than regular food. Is it worth that extra money? These topics can be investigated in libraries, the internet, all kind of ways. Once this person has decided, I'm serious. Here's one, laughter. The Bible says laughter is a merry heart doeth good like a medicine. A happy heart does good like a medicine. Would that help our physical growth? Now, simple suggestions. I'll close with these. Rest, exercise, fresh air, and sunshine. What could be more basic than that?